Most of us develop our personalities over time and for many different reasons, ranging from parenting styles to life experiences. Some people believe that we never change throughout life, or in other words, we are born a certain way and simply become more evolved throughout our lives. They believe that human nature does not change. According to them, some of us are just born assholes and spend most of our lives becoming bigger and bigger assholes. They argue that even an asshole can show restraint in certain situations, such as at work. When these assholes are in the presence of people who control their destiny, they pretend. They pretend to be civilized until they gain control, and then their natural asshole tendencies take over again. Interesting. Another theory is based not on nature, but on nurture or experience. This theory says that we are not born assholes, but that people or experiences turn us into assholes throughout our time here. Essentially, life trains us to be assholes. There are many versions of both of these theories, but if I had to choose, I'd be hard-pressed to do so. I believe that each of us is born with both sets of genes, and these asshole traits can be activated or deactivated due to extremely stressful events in our lives. I also believe that these traits may appeal to some people and not others. After you hear my story, you might feel the same way. My name is Ryan McCarthy. I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall, have brown hair and brown eyes. I am quite reserved by nature and generally try to get along with people. I don't think I've had a fist fight since I left elementary school. On the other hand, I have been doing martial arts and boxing since I was 8 years old. I came home from 3rd grade with a bleeding nose, and my dad, an old army guy, signed me up for karate classes. Of course, I still wasn't any stronger, and the big guys still sometimes walked away with my lunch money, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Knowing how to fight and probably kick their asses didn't make me a bully. It just gave me a choice. I could either fight them and probably hurt them, or I could just give them the 50 cents and eat later without all the trouble that fighting would bring. I guess I've just never been the alpha male type. I married Rhonda Barbie a couple of years after I graduated from college and things were going great for us. I love her and she loves me. We have a 2-year-old daughter, a wonderful home and a wonderful life. Rhonda is a little chubby, but I have fallen in love with her heart. I think it was my character that attracted her to me. Rhonda dated a couple of guys who were pretty rough. Although she is not fat, Rhonda treated herself the same way they say about fat girls. She just thought that she would have to try harder and lower her standards to get a guy. So some of the guys she dated manipulated her quite easily and didn't treat her the way she deserved. When we met, it was great for both of us. She knew I wouldn't force her to do anything she didn't want, sexually or otherwise. I am still very reserved and calm, so our arguments are rare. I think I tend to look at the big picture and try to think about the other person's point of view as well as my own. I try to avoid conflicts, especially in cases where they are not necessary. After she dated some guys, Rhonda's parents fell in love with me. So when we got married, everyone was happy. Our two families merged into one big one, with Rhonda and me at the center. When our daughter Haley was born 2 years ago, it was as if the world, or at least our piece of the world, tilted on its axis, and Haley became the sun. Rhonda quit her job and stayed home to take care of Haley. Honestly, I was making enough money that we both didn't have to work, and Rhonda was actually tired of working. She suggested staying at home. I just assumed that with both of us working, we would be able to put more money into our savings and investments. I, of course, lost this argument, and Rhonda became a housewife, and I became the sole breadwinner. This is how most of our cases went. I was not the kind of husband who liked to rage. Rhonda's father often told me that I was a coward, but he still loved me. "I'm glad my girl married you and not those assholes she used to date," he often said. In fact, most people who know us don't think the word no is in my vocabulary. Everyone is absolutely confident that Haley will have me wrapped around her finger and take control of the house by the time she's 5 or 6. It didn't bother me because my world revolved around Rhonda and Haley. There was nothing I wouldn't do for any of them. I think there were times when I should have been more assertive, but at the end of the day, their happiness made me happy. So on the days when I had a really hard day at work and I just wanted to go home and relax on my porch and have a beer and have a quiet dinner, but I would come home and Rhonda would gather a group of people for a chat and immediately hand me Haley. As soon as I crossed the threshold, I took it in stride. I tried to see it from her point of view, which was that she took care of Haley all day, and we did it together, so I had to spend time taking care of our daughter too. Rhonda also worked at home all day, making it home for all of us, so she never had the opportunity to go out or interact with adults the way she did when she worked. So I agreed with this. But then, as mentioned, I never really complained about much. So maybe, in some ways, I was a coward. I mean, I can break boards with my bare hands or feet. I weigh 170 pounds and lift 250, but I'm still a coward. I just don't have the Neanderthal gene. I probably would have gotten through life without ever getting angry if it weren't for one phone call. I almost never use our home phone. I use it so rarely that I don't know the number. Even when Rhonda calls me, my iPhone doesn't show a number, it just shows home. So that day when my phone was on charge and I needed to call a mechanic because my Taurus was acting strange again, my world had changed. When I picked up the phone, I heard voices. Normally, I would have hung up immediately, but I heard Rhonda laughing and it sounded like she was talking about me. "No, I don't think he even noticed we weren't there," she laughed. "Don't get me wrong, baby. I love Ryan and always will. But I don't think he would say anything if he caught us having sex. He would probably just say, 'Sorry,' and leave the house." Room. "Yes," said the man, whose voice I recognized but couldn't find a name. "He's so cute. He'd probably offer to spread your legs so I could take you." "Oh, Jim, stop exaggerating," Rhonda laughed. "Besides, your wife is no better." "That bitch better just do what I tell her," Jim said, "if she knows what's good for her. But damn, at least we're not doing this in her house. Ryan, I just don't know about him. Hey, while we're on the subject, my boss is a member of the same Masonic lodge as your father. Isn't Ryan her dick too?" "Yeah, my dad got him into it a few years ago. They remind me of the damn Flintstones with their funny hats and all these rituals. They are like a loyal troop of water buffalo." "Well, I want to be a water buffalo," said Jim. "If I join their box, I will have more time to communicate with my boss after work. This will give me a better chance in a few months when it comes time for a promotion." "I'll start dropping hints about this to Ryan," Rhonda said, "as long as you make me happy." "I'll keep you full of cock if it makes you happy," Jim said. "But if you love Ryan so damn much, why do you need me?" "Because I'm bored," Rhonda said. "I'm stuck at home with the baby all day. Ryan loves me and I love him. But with you, I can play a different role. I can be someone else. I don't know how long this will last. Maybe I will be bored with you too. I'd drop you like a hot rock if I even thought Ryan would find out about us. But as long as he doesn't know anything, we're in." I sat and held the phone for several minutes after they hung up. I heard Rhonda walking through the house and quickly went outside. I walked around the house and came back through the front door as if I wasn't there. "Hey, baby?" She smiled as I walked in. She came up to me and leaned in for a kiss. I studied her face. There was no sign of the lies or disrespect she felt for me. I stood there perhaps too long before I turned away from her. "What happened, dear?" she asked. "Did you have a bad day at work?" "The work was going well," I said. "Taurus will have to go into the store again. Can I use your car?" "Of course, baby," she said. "But it's just a car. They break. Get used to it. That's not the reason you don't kiss me when you come in. I've been thinking about you all day. I look forward to our time together." "Sorry," I said, and walked away, looking for her keys. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I'm going to the dojo," I said. She simply smiled. When I really needed to get something out of my body, I would often go to a local karate school run by a friend of ours. Rhonda laughed at that because she had never seen me hit a person. Rhonda laughed about it because she had never seen me hit a person. Sometimes she saw me doing kates or breaking boards, but my wife, like everyone else, was sure that I would not say a word, even if my mouth was full. I think she didn't think I was capable of actually hitting someone, even in anger. I was more of a talker than a fighter. She was right. That night, I beat the poor punching bag. I tried to drive out the anger and pain with blows, but I couldn't do it. My anger and pain settled like a ball of fire in the pit of my stomach. Even when I was so tired that I couldn't lift my arms anymore, I couldn't let it go. This was something new for me. I changed. I knew I wasn't going to go home and run into Rhonda, but I started to think about her differently. From that moment on, for the first time since I first saw her, I didn't think of Rhonda as one of my own. In fact, I didn't want her anymore. Even though I've heard that love doesn't disappear so quickly, I didn't love her anymore. I was sure of it. I knew something had to change because I was really angry. I wanted Rhonda to experience the same pain and suffering that I did. I knew I had to be smart about this. I had to plan and think about what I wanted to do. I started planning in my mind what I wanted to say to her. I needed to do it in a way that would affect her as much as possible. I am a strong person, I thought. Both mentally and physically, I am strong. I may not be able to lift my arms right now, but I am strong. I gathered my strength and pulled myself together. Martial arts is great for this kind of thing. They teach you to concentrate. With the possible exception of a firmer expression on my lips, I was able to hide my face to such an extent that my new feelings did not appear. I might look calm on the outside, but on the inside I wasn't. I screamed inside myself and felt only rage and pain. I had so many questions that I needed answers to. On my way home, I asked Siri to help me. For those who don't know, Siri is the personal assistant on the iPhone. I simply told Siri to find me a private investigator, and my phone screen showed 3 of them in my area. I chose a guy who was on his way home. I don't know what I expected. I guess I wanted to see Humphrey Bogart or Robert Mitchum. Hell, I'd settle for Columbo or even Barnaby Jones. I expected to see a seasoned veteran with plenty of life experience underneath his rumpled suit. I wanted someone with enough life experience, who had already seen and experienced everything. What I got was a 20-something-year-old with a belly and 3 days of stubble reading a video game magazine. He looked at me with eyes that had seen too much Modern Warfare 3. "What do you need?" he asked. I explained the situation to him, and he grabbed a worn leather jacket from the rack next to the Xbox. "Where are we going?" I asked as he stood at the door. "To your house," he said. "Depending on whether you want a divorce and how you want to file for it, you may need proof. So we will have to install several cameras and microphones throughout the house. Even if you don't want a divorce, you will need some kind of proof to confront her. This way she won't be able to tell you some ridiculous story about how you imagined it all, and in the very unlikely possibility that you don't even want to confront her now, you may need to have proof in the future, just in case." "How many cases like this have you seen?" I asked. The look on his face and his silent shake of his head said it all. "At least 100 or so," he said quietly. I was forced to immediately change my mind about him. "How long have you been in this business?" I asked. I thought he was barely 20. Now it suddenly dawned on me that maybe he was one of those guys like Dick Clark who just looked young. Perhaps I had my seasoned veteran after all. 3 years, he said. "I'm 25. Hearing his words didn't make me feel any better. In fact, the news that the end of my idyllic life and marriage was just a statistic depressed me even more. We went to my house. He followed me in his car. When we arrived home, Rhonda came out to meet him. I introduced him as the guy from the car dealership. She smiled and continued her business. We installed cameras with microscopic holes throughout the house, including our bedroom. We also added a small device to the phone lines that allowed us to monitor all phone calls. After I walked him to the door, I immediately went to the computer to listen to the call she was currently making. "Yeah, he brought some guy from the car dealership with him," she said. "We both know they're not going to respect his warranty. They'll make him pay for the repairs. He's my little man. What can I say? I love him, but he'll never be a tough guy." After a while, she came into the bedroom. She rolled over and hugged me, starting to kiss me. I pushed her away from me. After a few minutes, I felt her fingers crawling up my leg. I looked at her and saw her smiling. "I'm not in the mood," I told her. She looked shocked. "Since when do you have to be in the mood?" she asked. "Damn it, Ryan, it's just a car. It's not even that good a car. Forget it." Then she rolled to the other side of the bed. Over the next few days, she stuck to her usual routine. It seemed like Jim came to visit her every day. Listening to their phone calls and watching them whenever I could stand it helped me gain strength for what I needed to do. It was funny because ever since I found out about her and started distancing myself from her, she seemed to be taking it out on poor old Jim. In fact, yesterday, he received nothing at all. In fact, they had a fight. "Damn it, Jim," she snapped at him. "I don't like this. You don't even know what you're doing. Give you a hint, I need to get me excited first." "I thought you liked it hard and fast," he said. "I like it from time to time," she replied sharply. "But we've always done it this way," he complained. "This is what we do together. If I wanted to make love to someone, it would be someone I love. Damn, that's why I come to you and not my damn wife. What's your problem?" "I don't know," she said. "Ryan hasn't touched me in a week. Ever since his damn car broke down, he's been acting weird. All the things he used to do for me, he's skipping. He seems to blame me for the car." "You're still going to ask him to sponsor me to join the lodge, aren't you?" asked Jim. "Well, yes," said Rhonda. "But I was waiting for a better time. It's probably not a good idea to ask him to do this when he's not in the best mood. Yesterday he came home, played with the baby, went for a run, and then played with the baby again until she fell asleep. When he came back, we didn't even talk." "Maybe when he fixes the damn car, he'll feel better," Jim said. "When should they finish with her?" "I didn't even ask him," Rhonda said. "I'll ask today. Jim, I really miss him. It's not just the sex, although I miss that too. It's all the little things, like him coming home and massaging my shoulders or rubbing my legs. It seems like an eternity. Since we just sat and watched TV together or sat on our porch and talked. Blah, blah, blah," Jim said. "I really don't care about your marriage. Are we going to have sex or not?" "Or not," Rhonda said angrily. "Call me when you pull your head out of your ass." When I got home that night, Rhonda asked me about the car. She cooked all my favorite dishes for dinner and walked around the house in a very low-cut blouse and a very short skirt. Under normal circumstances, I would be delighted. But in this case, I knew she was just horny because she had a fight with her boyfriend. "Ryan, honey, how's the repair going on your car?" she asked me. "Coming," I said. "Maybe you should be a little more assertive with them and stop letting everyone push you around," she said. "I need my car too, you know." I walked over to the table and took my car keys. I took Rhonda's car keys off the key fob and placed them in her hand. Then he sat back at the table to eat. "Ryan, that's not what I meant," she said. "You're upset and all this is bothering you, so it's bothering me too. I love you, Ryan." "Yes, that's what you say," I thought. "You love me so much that you would do anything for me except stay faithful. You love me so much that you have sex with another man in our house, in our bed, where we sleep." I thought about it, but as always, I didn't say anything. I just screamed inside myself again. She must have seen my rage in my eyes. I thought I was strong. I know the words I need to say. Freezing in place, I let the moment slip away. Her eyes widened when, instead of responding to her words, I simply moved away from the table, leaving my lunch untouched. "Ryan," she called as I walked away. I didn't answer. I just went to look at my sleeping daughter. I loved this little girl more than life itself. If it weren't for her, I probably would have just left Rhonda the first day I found out about her and Jim. I closed the door behind me and walked through the house. I grabbed my gym bag and went outside. "Ryan, where are you going?" Rhonda asked. Without a word or even turning to her, I simply picked up my gym bag. "Ryan, the gym is a mile away. How do you get there?" she asked. "I can handle it," I replied. When I returned home, it was already after midnight. While I was in the gym beating another punching bag, I made a decision. It's time to end this farce called my marriage. I had all the evidence I needed to get Rhonda to give me what I wanted. The problem was my daughter. If I got custody, I would have to arrange childcare and visitation and all that. I wanted everything to be ready when we filed for divorce. There was also the problem of confronting Rhonda and handing her the papers. My parents loved Rhonda, and her parents loved me. This would be a terrible blow for both families. "Ryan, Rhonda called as I walked up the stairs. "You've been away from home for so long." I didn't answer. I just went to the bathroom to take a shower. As I let the warm water flow over me, the shower door opened. Rhonda came into my shower and hugged me. "Rhonda," I said in a very indifferent tone. "Everything hurts." I tried to keep my voice as neutral as possible. I didn't want to show any anger, and at the same time I was tired of her hurting me. I wonder if she'll ever know how painful it is to sit and listen to a tape of the woman who supposedly loves you calling you a coward while talking to another man. I wonder if she knows how much it hurts to be constantly put down by being called my little man, or other similar expressions. "Ryan, it's been 2 weeks now," she retorted angrily. "What have I done?" she asked. "I didn't break your car. It wasn't me, Ryan." She walked out of the bathroom, still dripping water. I could hear her crying as I calmly dried myself off and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. I think she expected me to come into the bedroom and try to comfort her. I mean, that's how I've always reacted in situations like this. This was how I always did it before. Perhaps this was the beginning of change. The next morning, I woke up early to get to work on time. I haven't really done anything about my car in the last 2 weeks. There was no need, because there was nothing really wrong with her. All she needed was maintenance, which I did the next day. I just kept letting Rhonda think there was a problem with the car because I needed a reason to act differently than usual. I decided to just take the car to the dealership to get something done. Maybe change the oil or rotate the tires or something, so I don't have to explain anything about the damn car. I told my secretary that I had a problem that needed to be solved and drove to the Ford dealership. While I was waiting for the service technician to speak to me, I looked around. "You're driving a Taurus, aren't you?" he said after a few minutes. "They're great cars. They're reliable, they're easy to handle, and they'll never give you any problems. How long have you been driving this? More than 10 years, right?" I'm confused. When he described my car, he unknowingly described me. Reliable, unpretentious, never creating problems. It was me. I went to work every damn day and provided for my daughter and that cheating wife. I never asked for anything and always did what was expected of me, even when that bitch was throwing her legs in front of some scoundrel ex-colleague. Reliable, unpretentious. This also meant inconspicuous. I could sit here and scream and beg for her to stop forever, and it would never matter because she wouldn't notice or care what she was doing to me or to us. To hell with us. In fact, we no longer existed. There was no more US. Not for a moment, I thought. Not a second more. The words came out of me before I even realized what I was saying. "I need a salesman," someone said. "I want this car." He ran and brought the seller. I took it for a test drive as if I was in a trance. As I drove my car through the streets, I noticed that almost everyone I passed noticed. Notice. This is exactly what I wanted. On the way back to the dealership, I took out my phone and called the lawyer I had hired. I told him he needed to file for divorce today. They were ready last week, but I didn't want to serve them. I told him to go ahead and give them to Rhonda and Jim. I told him that with any luck, he could catch them together at my house in about an hour. My second call, as soon as I pulled into the parking lot, was to my insurance agent. I updated my insurance policy to include a new car. I needed to get insurance quickly because it was now my car. I had no intention of returning her. When I sat down with the salesperson, I tried to keep a neutral expression. "I can offer you a deal on the interest rate," he said. "How much do you need in contribution?" I asked. "Well, we have to," he began. "Listen," I said, "I just need a number." My insurance agent called the dealership while we were signing the paperwork. He faxed proof of insurance, and I pulled out of the parking lot. The roar of the engine was music to my ears. I smiled at a couple of women as I stopped next to them at a traffic light. This was another change. I would never have done this before. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed that the door to my house was open. My time was not very good. I expected Rhonda to be home, but I didn't think Jim would still be there. All I heard from inside the house was Jim screaming and Rhonda crying. Several of my neighbors came up to me as I got out of the car. "It's good that you're home," said my housemate. "She and that guy who always comes to visit her have been fighting for a long time. Whose car is this?" "Mine," I said, smiling. Damn it, he said. Wait until I tell Ellen you bought a brand new Mustang. She'll be begging you for a ride. You probably shouldn't tell her, Sam, I said, winking at him. You may not get her back, and I'm in the market looking for another woman to match the new car. He simply smiled and nodded at me as I walked into the house. Rhonda looked terrible. She cried a lot. She kept turning over the pages of divorce documents. Both she and Jim looked at me as I walked through the door. Ryan, I don't understand, she cried. I don't want a divorce. We can fix this. It was a mistake. Jim came up to me. Listen, Ryan, why are you including me in your divorce? He asked. I have a wife and 2 children. If you point me out, it will probably ruin my marriage too. My wife has nothing to do with it. Don't you feel sorry for my children? I just looked at him. I was surprisingly calm. Both of them spoke at the same time, blaming each other. I sat down at the kitchen table to think about what I should eat. Let's all sit down like adults and talk about this, Jim said. I'm sure we can resolve this to everyone's satisfaction. Both of them also sat down at the table. They both kept talking, or Jim was talking, and Rhonda was crying. Listen, Ryan, Jim started again. I know it looks bad, but there's really nothing here. It happened one time, and it was just sex. You see, both me and Rhonda, well, we both like rough sex, and neither do you. Neither my wife supports this. You don't because you love Rhonda, but my wife because she's romantic. She's more into flirting and kissing and all that nonsense. So we both had unfulfilled needs. But this one cleaned out our systems. This will not happen again. You understand this, don't you? I didn't say a word. Rhonda took this as a sign that it was her turn to speak. Ryan, you're the only man I love. I don't want a divorce. That's why I've been acting so weird lately, because you haven't been like yourself. And... Jim started again. Listen, Ryan, you're not the kind of person to act hastily. Be smart. There's no... That was all he had time to say. He wrung his hands and complained, but moved on from that to standing over me. His voice took on an almost menacing tone. Old Ryan might have listened to him. But I've changed. I stood up so quickly that neither of them probably realized what had happened until it was too late. The old Ryan would have let the anger build up inside him and would have taken it out later by running outside to relieve the pain or going to the gym to beat up an innocent punching bag. But I've changed. I was no longer the old Ryan. I do not think so. I was just reacting. Even before my legs pushed off to lift me out of the chair, my arm was in motion. I made an open palm strike to Jim's chin. I think my goal was to push him back because I didn't like the way he was looming over me. I probably took it as a threat. I underestimated my time, my anger, and my strength. I also underestimated Jim's luck. My shot hit the target. His jaw closed with almost enough force to break it. The only thing that saved him from this was his neck snapping back, absorbing most of the force. It still sent him flying backwards and upwards, knocking him out of his chair and landing him awkwardly on the floor on his back. Rhonda was shocked that her soft-spoken little man would do something like that, but she was in for an even bigger shock. Jim writhed on the floor, covering his face with both hands, making incomprehensible sounds. Rhonda looked at me and I shrugged. It looks like he bit his tongue off, I said calmly. She jumped over to him while he was still writhing in agony from pain. Ryan, call an ambulance, she shouted. To hell with it, I said. Jim steeled himself despite the pain and began pointing outward. I'll take him to the ER, she said. On what? I asked calmly. In my car, she said. I paid for this car, I said. He won't get in it. Ryan, she said, pleading. Sign the divorce papers and you can take it, I said. No way, she said, picking up the phone. She dialed 911. A few minutes later, an ambulance arrived and took Jim to a nearby clinic. I never left the kitchen. Neither Jim nor his injuries concerned me. After the ambulance left, Rhonda returned to the house. She spent a few minutes talking with some neighbors. Whose Mustang is in the driveway? She asked. Mine, I said. You bought a new car without consulting me? She asked. You started having sex with some idiot in our bed without consulting me? I replied back. Ryan, it happened once and it won't happen again. she said, looking at the floor. "Rhonda, I've been videotaping you and listening to your phone calls for over 2 weeks. And this started before then," I said. She started crying again. "I think it's best for you to go live with your parents for a while. Since you can't tell me the truth, we have nothing to talk about." "But Ryan, please," she cried. "I'm scared. I'm just trying to keep us together. Give me one more chance. How about Haley?" "Don't you dare mention my daughter's name, you bitch," I yelled at her. "I'll take her as soon as I calm down. I'll have to get used to it anyway. I don't think any judge will give custody of a child to a mother who doesn't work, but sends her daughter to a babysitter so she can have sex with her boyfriend at home. Just go away, Rhonda." I took a couple of days off from work to try to figure out my new situation. On the first day, while I met with a lawyer and tried to find a good daycare, Haley looked after my mom. Rhonda called my home phone and my cell phone with alarming frequency. I never listened to her messages or called her back. My mom begged me to talk to her for Haley's sake. The most difficult moment was when the conference of grandparents all piled on me to give me their advice. Then I found out that Rhonda was still lying. They were all convinced that we were having financial problems, and we had argued because I had gone out and bought an expensive and impractical new toy. Even my own parents gave me strange looks when they pulled into my driveway and saw the Mustang sitting there. "Son," said my father, "if you were already arguing over money, why did you buy this car?" I didn't say another word. I took them all into my office, logged into my bank's online banking center, and showed them how many we have in checking and savings. Then I showed them the investments in my brokerage account and in the Haley College Fund. I also told them about my 401k plan at work. "So Rhonda probably doesn't know how good you guys are," her mother said. "You should tell her to forget about the car and agree to come home." "Rhonda knows we don't have money problems," I said. "Then why are you two—" my mother began. "You can start by asking Rhonda to tell you the truth," I said. "Sorry, but I need to pick up my daughter." "This baby is too young to go to kindergarten," Rhonda's mom said. "I could watch her while you work." "I would gladly accept your offer," I said, "but Rhonda will stay with you." Rhonda's father was probably the quickest to figure it out. He made them all go home and talk to Rhonda. At the time, I thought it was good. The next day, when she showed up at my work, I was no longer so sure. She looked like hell. She also cried and screamed hysterically. Just to maintain my good guy status, I had to agree to sit with her. I didn't want to do this at work, so I made an appointment to meet her later. Before I left for work that day, I had another visitor. She was a beautiful woman whom I had never seen before. My secretary showed her into my office, and she immediately rushed towards me. "Oh my God, it was an accident," she said. "I do not blame you. He doesn't blame you, but he's unhappy because he thinks you abandoned him." "I'm really sorry," I said. "Who are you?" "God," she said. "Ryan, I've heard so much about you over the past couple of months that I feel like I already know you. I'm Jim's wife, Starla. I was very happy when you two became friends. Jim doesn't have many friends," she said. "It's because no one can trust him," I thought to myself. "So how is he doing?" I asked. "Well, he's in a lot of pain. It can't be felt yet, but they hope. But the worst thing is that he really misses you. You guys spent so much time playing golf together. And all this nonsense. If you promise to sponsor him in this little house, you will really help him with his boss at work." I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. Did he tell you how it happened?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "It is not your fault. I think it was mostly his fault. You patted him on the back for finally beating the rest of you guys on the golf course. Of course, he was eating at that time and simply bit his tongue. Either way, he really wants you guys to get back together." "Well, tell him I'll be home around 5:30 tonight," I said. "That would be great," she said. "I'll take the kids to McDonald's or something, and you guys can have a man's night. But I must warn you, he really doesn't know how to talk much yet. He still has to write everything he wants to say, so be patient." As she approached the door, she turned and smiled at me. "You really are as cute as he told me," she smiled. I owe you. She smiled. I owe you. I couldn't believe Jim. Starla was amazing, and her figure was incredible. If I were married to her, she would have to fight me off with a stick to get me away from her. We would probably have at least 8 children. I left work at my usual time of 5 p.m. and stopped to pick up Haley from daycare. As always, she was happy to see her dad and made me smile just seeing her. I still needed to find a better solution than daycare, but I could take things one day at a time. When I arrived at the house, Rhonda was already there. "Ryan, God, I've missed you so much," she said emotionally. "And for my baby, too." "I'm surprised," she said. "She seems to be coping quite well without me." Tears appeared in Rhonda's eyes. "I'm surprised, too," I said. "I did a DNA test and she really is my daughter." Rhonda looked offended. She took a breath to say something, but I raised my hand, signaling that she should remain silent. "Don't say anything, Rhonda," I said coldly. "I needed to be convinced of everything in my life. You have already betrayed me in the worst way and lied to me, trying to hide it. Why should I believe a word from your mouth?" "Ryan, everyone makes mistakes," she said, starting to cry. "I never wanted to hurt you. You are the most important thing in my life." "Yes, I'm your weakling," I said. "Ryan, what are you talking about, honey?" she asked. "This conversation will be very short," I said, turning to go into the house. "Ryan, please don't go," she said. "I do not understand what you mean." "Listen," I began. I was going to call her names, but I remembered that I had a 2-year-old daughter in my arms. "I have tapes and videos of you and Jim together," I said. "I heard you talking about me and putting me down." Her mouth opened in surprise, and she was about to cry. I raised my hand again. "No more tears," I said sharply. "If you say or do anything to upset Haley, you will leave. You choose your path, now lie down in it. I invited you here to—" Before I could finish, Jim pulled up. He got out of the car, holding a large notebook in his hands. Seeing Rhonda, his eyes widened. I opened the door to the house and we all went inside, but no one said a word. "Why is he here?" Rhonda asked. "We all have something to talk about," I replied sharply. "Well, why don't you and him talk first and then you and I can spend time on it?" "I'll play with Haley while you discuss," Rhonda said. I put Haley in her playpen. "We'll all talk together," I said. "I don't want Haley to get used to you when you'll probably only see her every other weekend for an hour or so." Rhonda looked like she was going to cry again, but I raised my magic hand again, and she stopped again. Meanwhile, Jim was diligently writing something on his notepad. The first message he wrote begged me to withdraw the lawsuit against him. He told me that his marriage was already struggling, and he couldn't let his wife know what he was doing. He begged me to think about his children. "What did you think of my daughter when you helped turn her mother into an easy woman?" I replied sharply. He cowered and stepped away from me, as if he was afraid that I would hit him. "You have nothing to fear from me," I told him. "I'm not the kind of person who goes around and hits people. I'm a weakling, remember? Remember how you and that bitch talked about me on the phone?" My voice grew louder, and Haley looked at me. I forced myself to smile and went to play with her to calm her down. "I'll do whatever you want," he wrote. "I'll give you everything I have." "Perhaps I'll use this," I told him. "But get your house in order. For now, I won't say anything to your wife. I'll stay the lawsuit against you. I'm not giving up on it, but I need to take care of my divorce first. Then I'll start yours." "No!" Rhonda screamed. "Please, Ryan, no!" she cried. Then Haley started crying, and I went to calm her down. "Rhonda, I warned you," I said, smiling at Haley and tickling her sides. "If you have another seizure, I won't see you until the trial. Now look at your daughter and smile, damn it." Rhonda's tears flowed, but she forced herself to look at Haley and smile. "Before you go, 2 things," I told Jim. "First, I want you to call me every day to make sure I don't need anything from you. And second, I want you to write me a long letter. In this letter, I want you to tell me how it all started between you and my ex-wife. I also want to know why you cheated on your wife. I saw her today, and I can't imagine how anyone in their right mind would cheat on her. She is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen outside of television or film. I just don't understand. Is she prettier than me? Rhonda asked. Yes, I said. And she has a better figure. Jim got up to leave. He nodded his head and quickly wrote down, "Thank you, I will send you an email." He then left the room, leaving me with my wife. "Ryan, can we go and sit on the couch in our living room?" she asked. "We have a lot to talk about." "Why?" I asked. "Because we can't get over this and rebuild our lives if we don't talk," she said. "No, Rhonda," I said. "What I meant was, why would I even talk to you? You've done nothing but lie since the beginning of this whole thing. When the divorce papers were filed and I came home, you tried to deceive me with your lover. You claimed it only happened once. Neither of you knew about the video at the time. Then you lied to our parents. Even now they have no idea what it's all about. Then you pretended you didn't know what I was talking about when you asked you about the way you were talking about me. So why, Rhonda? Why should I believe everything you told me? Because I only lied because I was afraid of losing you," she said. "You and Haley are my whole world. I would do anything for you." "Everything except keeping your feet together," I replied sharply. "Everything other than honoring the vows we made when we got married." "Ryan, I never meant to hurt you," she began. "What you mean is that you never wanted to get caught," I said. "Remember when you talked about what would happen if I found out? Remember how you said that I was such a weakling that I wouldn't do anything?" She lowered her head and began to cry. "It's always funny until someone gets a divorce," I laughed. "Ryan, I admitted I did it. I'm sorry. I would have done anything to prevent this from happening. I swear. All you have to do is tell me what I have to do to fix it. Ryan, we've been together for a long time. On the road to forever, there will always be ups and downs in every relationship. You can't just give up and throw in the towel every time something goes wrong. We're a great team. We take care of each other and our daughter. We always have. If you listen to my conversations with Jim, you also know that all was not well between us. But I never skimped on you. I always was attentive to your every need. I would die before deliberately hurting you." "Nonsense," I said. I quickly looked at Haley to make sure my outburst didn't upset her. She started yawning in her playpen. I turned to Rhonda with anger on my face. "You didn't care about anything," I hissed, barely audible. "Except for the need to have sex with Jim. I suffered from the moment I found out about you two. I screamed inside, and I know that you felt pain, but it was important for you only to satisfy your needs. So now you should be happy because nothing is holding you back anymore." "What do you mean?" she asked. "Now I have much more reason to limit myself. These few days when we were apart were a nightmare. All I did was lay on my bed and cry, praying for you to give me another chance. I repeated it over and over again. God help me find a way to dream in this nightmare. All I saw was me trying to live my life without you. It was hell. I saw you raising Haley without me and someone else replacing me in my daughter's heart. I know you won't forgive me the second time. I will never do anything to make you even think that I was looking at another man. My time for cheating with Jim or anyone else is over." "You'll find someone else," I said. "And you haven't seen the last of Jim, I'm sure of it." "He disgusts me," she said. "Yes, since you got caught," I answered sharply. "Did you sign the papers?" "Of course not," she said. "I already told you, we're not getting a divorce, and you don't want that. You love me and I love you. Why the hell should we get a divorce? Ryan, you're too emotional. Just tell me what needs to be done so that we are able to overcome this," she said in a softer voice. "Ryan, I miss you. I won't make any more mistakes." She reached out to me, a gesture she had done so many times over the years that it had become like second nature to her. This time, however, things didn't go as she expected. As fast as a snake, I grabbed her hand right before she touched me. "Don't ever touch me," I told her. "We both know where your hands were." She looked into my eyes and saw that I was serious. "Rhonda, I let you come here so we could talk like adults. You refused to see reality, So there's no point in continuing our conversation. You need a very good lawyer. I wanted this divorce to be easy. I'm not going to pay you for ruining my life, but I'm not going to be cruel about it. I want Haley and the house. My intention is to give you a small but reasonable amount up front. No alimony, because like I said, I'm not going to pay you for ruining my life. I'll also make Jim pay you. Since he fucked you, he should help you support yourself. That's fair, isn't it? I was also going to give you extensive visiting rights. No, Rhonda said again. It is not right. A crazy look appeared in her eyes. Ryan, do you read the papers? A lot of people have affairs. It doesn't have to end in divorce. I love you. I told you that over and over again. I never loved Jim. It was just sex. I'm not those people in the newspapers, Rhonda. I want a divorce. I'm trying to let you stay in Haley's life, but I want you out of my life. If you don't agree to this and force me, I'll act tough. I'll ruin your name so much that you won't be able to stay in this town. It'll disgrace your whole family and ruin Jim's life. Is that what you want? No, Ryan, you know what I want. I want my husband and my family back, she said. Rhonda, do you have copies of the documents? I said. I'm trying to be kind, so I'll give you 3 days to find a lawyer and return the signed papers to me. After that, I'll draw up new documents with the true reason for my desire for divorce, renew the lawsuit against Jim, and even subpoena your parents, so they can give testimony about how you lied about the reasons for our divorce. She didn't say anything, just stood up and started walking away. She looked back at me and shook her head. Very early the next morning, a visitor came to see me. I fed Haley porridge prepared just the way she liked it. Haley loves her cereal with strawberries and a little cinnamon. She smiled and pointed to the window. Rhonda's mom was standing there. Good morning, beloved son-in-law, she said cheerfully. After I leave, no one will ever know about this visit. I came for 2 reasons. The first, of course, was to see my charming granddaughter. She kissed Haley and stroked her cheek. The second one so you and I can talk. I nodded and looked at her. She took over feeding Haley. You don't mind, do you? She asked. I have a feeling I may not do this often. Why? I asked. Because I see stupidity when it's in front of me, she said. I also see the pain she causes, and I see that pain in your eyes. Rhonda messed up, didn't she? I simply nodded. This girl is as stupid as the day is long, she said. All this nonsense she told us about how you just needed some time apart. I can't believe she could be so stupid. How did you know? I asked. Honey, a woman doesn't cry over a man she left because he messed up. She may be very angry with him. She can sit there calling him all sorts of names, but she won't lie in her bed crying for not being able to get a man back if she did something wrong. But Ryan, let me tell you a story that no one knows about, okay? Okay. But only because you are my favorite mother-in-law, I said. Ha ha, she laughed. I'm your only mother-in-law. Anyway, this happened about 20 years ago to a couple I know. They loved each other very much. They had a wonderful life and not 1, but 2 small children. But the husband fell into a kind of rut. Maybe he looked around and was jealous of some of his single friends. Maybe the daily grind of going to work and coming home to help take care of his kids was wearing him down. He ended up doing a very stupid thing. He had several meetings with a woman who was not his wife, and I'm not talking about business meetings. A few weeks later, his wife found out about this and kicked him to hell. She gave him what he wanted. She filed for divorce. She went to work so that after the divorce, she could take care of her children. His husband decided to try to contest the divorce. After a few days away from home, he regretted what he had done far more than he ever could have imagined. He missed his children and he really missed his wife. That other woman was wonderful on the side, like a sort of decoration on his cake. But he discovered that his boring little housewife and wife, she was that cake. So he came home begging and begging her to take him back. His wife told him that she was determined to get a divorce, but for the sake of the children, she would give him 1 year to convince her to call it off. He could go home and start being a dad again, but he had to earn everything else. He had to sleep in the guest room. They could talk to each other civilly for the sake of their children, but everything else he had to earn. At the end of 1 year, If he didn't convince her that he deserved another chance, the divorce would be finalized and he wouldn't be able to challenge neither the divorce itself nor her terms of division of property. There will be no counseling, no therapy, none of this touchy, sensitive stuff, just him trying his best to convince the woman he loves her, and that even though he screwed up, he should get another chance. And he tried his best. Being away from his home and family was all he needed to understand what he had taken for granted. Then he realized how much he missed his children and how nice his home was, and how his wife worked hard to make him like this. When people started calling her about the job applications she had submitted, he also began to realize that his wife was still an attractive woman and that she could find someone else in an instant. But it was still hard. She made him jump through all the hoops, but they ended up falling in love again and even had another child. Don't tell anyone, but this third one might have been a mistake because she's too smart and doesn't know how lucky she is. She smiled at me. I think what I'm trying to say, Ryan, is that people are human beings. We all make mistakes. Sometimes we will hurt the people we love the most, and that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it's worth giving them a second chance. I am not saying we should make it easy for them. If they want that second chance, they have to work hard to earn it. But sometimes it's worth it. Even if that third daughter of theirs isn't too smart, every time I look for this little angel, I'm glad he got this second chance. I was shocked. It was you, wasn't it? I asked. She just nodded and smiled. Ryan, don't tell anyone, she said. Besides me, Ted, and now you, no one knows. Our kids don't even know that their dad cheated on me, but I have to give him credit. He never gave me any reason to even suspect him again. And Ryan, it's going to take time for you to get over the pain. Even after 20 years, sometimes I can see something on TV and get angry at Ted all over again. It's more than I know that he didn't do anything for 20 years so that I could. You can't trust him, but you never completely forget. You can forgive with all your heart and move on, but a small part of that pain will always be with you. You just have to decide what's greater, the love you have for that person or the pain they caused you. It's one of those decisions that no one can make for you. I smiled at her and took her hand. You know that no matter what happens, you are her grandmother, right? I will never take away your ability to see her or place any restrictions on when or how you can see her. You can visit her every day, if you want, and take her over for the night when she's older, regardless of how things turn out. You know that, right? I asked. Now I know, she said, hugging me. Later that evening, a nice old lady came to my house. I registered with an agency to find a live-in nanny who would help around the house and take care of Haley. She was a really nice woman, but I think she was a little too old. Raising a small child requires a lot of energy, and I had doubts that she had enough. Besides, Haley didn't reach out to her. I didn't want Haley to have to get used to anyone. Over the next few days, different women came to our house almost every day. I still haven't found the right person. Jill, who was about 24 and very beautiful, came to the interview at the worst possible moment. We were halfway through her interview, and I had just introduced her to Haley when Rhonda came home. When she saw Jill, she began to cry and rushed at Jill. After we separated them, I had to explain to both of them what was happening. Rhonda, what's wrong with you? I asked. You didn't even give me a chance to fight for you in our marriage, and you're already dating, she sobbed. Rhonda, Jill is here for an interview for a nanny position, I said. We're not dating, and she's too young for me. Maybe it was the look on Jill's face when I said it, or her slight shake of her head, but Rhonda lunged at her again. I had to reschedule Jill's interview to appease Rhonda. Ryan, I will do whatever it takes to save our marriage, Rhonda said as soon as Jill left. I don't want some young lady putting my daughter to bed and then getting into bed with my husband. Jill is 24, I said, and she's the youngest I've asked so far. I don't care, Rhonda replied sharply. For all the years we spent together, you should give me another chance, Ryan. I don't owe you anything, I said angrily. I tried to calm down. Have you found a lawyer? I asked. Ryan, Please don't do this, she whined. Can I tell you a story? She asked. She then told me the same story her mother told me. Only she told it from a man's point of view. I realized that her father had told her this story. And then, like lightning striking me, I realized what I needed to do. Rhonda, this story is so corny, I said. How could a woman trust this guy again? How can she know that he would never cheat on her again and just didn't get caught? He would never cheat on her again, she replied sharply. He loved her. He almost lost her forever and knows he won't get the chance again. That was 20 damn years ago, I said. People were more honest then. Now people lie as easily as they tell the truth. Nowadays, I would need some kind of collateral. What kind of collateral would you need, Ryan? She asked with excitement. We're not talking about us, right? I asked. I thought this was the story of your people 20 years ago. Well, what if it was us? She asked. What would be needed? Well, I think I'd like to have the divorce papers signed and notarized. I'd like it to say that we're divorced and you're with absolutely nothing but your personal belongings. You'd have to move into the guest room and earn your way back into my heart and my bed like that. I mean, guy from 20 years ago. She jumped up and hugged me. Ryan, we can do this. We can save our marriage. You'll see, she said. It's over, Rhonda, I said. Our marriage is over, but I still need you. Maybe we can start over and build an even better relationship. She leaned in to kiss me and I pushed her away. When I receive and check the papers, I said. 2 days later, Rhonda returned home. She was so happy that she seemed about to burst every time I looked at her. She tried with all her might to regain my favor. She cooked even better than I remembered. She treated Haley wonderfully. I had to constantly remind her that I wasn't ready for touching or talking yet. I treated her calmly, but without warmth. Every time she tried to do something special for me, I refused to accept it. If she cooked a special dinner for me or did something unusual just because she thought I would like it, I simply didn't eat it or take it. I also started leaving pictures of her and Jim all over the house. At first, every time she found one, she cried. Then she just started tearing them. As for Jim, he wrote me a very long, tearful letter about why he betrayed his wife. Rhonda wasn't the first time he cheated on Starla. She wasn't even second. Starla caught him one day and told him that if he ever did it again, their marriage would be over. That's probably why he was ready to do everything so that she wouldn't find out. I often had to force Jim to do the stupidest things. I would call him in the middle of the night and make him rush to our house to take out the trash if I didn't feel like doing it. It was really fun because he lived on the other side of town. I guess after a few weeks, Rhonda started to think things were getting better for us. One night, after Holly had fallen asleep, Rhonda came into my bedroom after her shower. I think I'm more of a servant here, she said, leaning over the bed. You know, a lot of guys in your place would have their own servants. I'm sure that bitch Jill was studying sex with you, so what's the difference? The difference is that I only have sex with those I love, I said. I don't like sports sex. That's yours. And maybe I would have sex with Jill by now, but last time I checked, you're not her. Ryan, darling, I miss you. Do you know how long it's been since we made love? She asked. I really need you. Yes, I said. 'Twas the night before I heard you on the phone telling Jim how much you loved, what you did, and what a wimp I was. She sat on the bed with tears falling. She looked at me and shook her head. Ryan, you have no idea how sorry I am that all of this happened, she said. Yes, Rhonda, I really do, I said. I'm the one who got below the belt, after hearing what his wife really thinks of him. I'm the one who found out that you took something that I thought was special and shared only with you and just gave it to some idiot for fun. You're the one who gave a crap about our marriage, not me. See, Rhonda, this is worse for me, because at least you had a choice. You did this to us. Now get out of my room. Anytime you don't like it, you can just leave. And frankly, I don't care. She ran out of the room, crying. Old Ryan would probably feel bad. I don't. But I thought about it. The next morning, I went downstairs and found her in the kitchen. It looks like she cried in her sleep. She looked terrible. Rhonda, I said, walking into the kitchen. I was thinking about this last night. I guess sex is something healthy adults really shouldn't go without. So how about tonight? She had the biggest smile on her face, and she must have lost her concentration because she dropped the plate she was holding. She nodded her head and began to say, "Yes, of course, dear. You won't regret it." That night, while Haley was already asleep, Rhonda came out of the shower in a translucent robe that only emphasized her braless breasts. The funny thing about it was that before all this happened, I would have exploded just seeing her like that. But as she walked back and forth, bending here and there, the only thought in my head was that Starla would look much better in it. "Are you ready?" I asked. She almost broke her neck, nodding her head. "Okay, then let's go to the guest room," I said. "Ryan, can we do this in our bed?" she asked. "It's bigger and more comfortable." "Rhonda, you have to earn your way back to that bed," I replied sharply. "Sex won't do that, and that's all there is. There are no feelings. It's just sex, nothing else. Remember what you said about you and Jim, so the guest room will do. If you want to cuddle after, we'll see how it goes. It's possible, although I'm not ruling it out." "Then let's go to the guest room," she said. "You know, maybe since we're starting over, I should stop taking the pills." "It's your decision," I said. She took my arm and I pushed her away as we walked up the stairs. "As soon as I take off your clothes, you will beg me to touch certain parts of your body," she said. I just couldn't stop smiling looking at her. Which bitch, I thought. It was all I could do not to laugh. When we walked into the guest room and she saw Jim sitting on the bed naked and looking like he wanted to cry, her face lost all color. "What the hell is he doing here?" she screamed. She began to try to cover her almost nakedness. "Stop pretending, Rhonda," I said. "Jim has seen this many times before." "But I don't understand," she said. "Is he going to watch us or what? Are you going to force me into a threesome?" "Ryan, I've never done this. Please don't make me do this," she cried. "Rhonda, we're not going to have a threesome," I said. "And Jim isn't going to look. You said you wanted to have sex, so I brought him here to have sex with you. You got laid." "No!" they both screamed. "Why not?" I asked mockingly. "You couldn't get enough of each other when you were sneaking around in secret. It was good enough for you to risk 2 marriages and hurt both families. Now go to bed and start having sex." "I can't do it," said Jim. "I'm no longer attracted to her. When I look at her, all I see is the risk of losing my wife and my sons." "Rhonda, get up and deliver nipple-leisure," I said. Her eyes widened in surprise. "I don't do that," she said. "Nonsense," I said. "You did this to me all the time." "It's true," he said. "We met 5 or 6 times and I could never get her to do it to me. Nice. I'll get my sex toy," she said. "It will work." "Do something," I said. "I'm starting to get bored." "You're not as cute as everyone thinks," he said. "What are you going to do, Jim? Cry?" I asked. "Are you going to start crying like a little girl?" "I'm sorry," he said. "Can't you forgive us?" I suddenly realized that even though Jim was physically larger than me, he was cowering in front of me as if he thought I was going to hit him. Somehow, in my pain, I became the thing I hated most. I've always been stronger than him. Truly strong people do not need to show off their strength by putting others down or attacking them. Only those who doubt their strength need to prove it or show it at every turn. "Get out of my house," I said sharply. Jim began to pull up his trousers. He had already pulled them over his ankles when Rhonda returned to the bedroom holding the sex toy. He tripped while going down the stairs. Fortunately, he didn't bite his tongue again. That would have been too cruel. Rhonda looked at me with horror in her eyes. "It's not my fault," she complained. "I didn't make him leave. I didn't want to have sex with him, Ryan. I only want you. But I was going to do it. Please don't kick me out." I just shook my head and sat down at the kitchen table where it all started. I sat thinking about all this for a long time. I must have sat there for an hour when I noticed Rhonda standing next to me. "You have changed," she said. "You'll never even try to come back to the U.S., will you?" "It's not that I've changed that much," I said. It's not that I don't see the fading light of what we were. But how can I forgive you? You have changed, and I am alone. Rhonda, you have changed. The Rhonda I fell in love with would never have started dating with another guy behind my back. She wouldn't pay someone to watch our daughter while she goes off to have sex with another married guy. When you changed, you created a new Ryan. You made me change. Can we go back to the way things were? She asked. Honestly, I can't answer that, I said. I'm not even sure I want to. She started crying again. Rhonda, every action has a consequence, I said. But it didn't mean anything, she said. It was less than nothing. All I told him was how much I love you. Maybe if you could tell him that without letting him have you, things would work out better, I said. And if you loved me so much, why did you just sit there and laugh or even join in when he called me all those names? Rhonda, I will honor our agreement, I said. I'll stop trying to punish you. I'll try to really get over it. I'll give you a year. But you need to stop pressuring me too. No full-blown attempts to bring sex back. Let's just live in the same house and see if we can find each other again. Friend. Over the next few weeks, we settled into our lives. Rhonda took care of our daughter and tried to take care of me, but to me, she was more like a servant than anything else. I did start to experience romantic feelings, or at least an itching feeling in the background of my thoughts, but this was not the Rhonda I was dreaming of. I remembered a conversation with my father-in-law a few days later at a lodge meeting. He was telling me about potential new people that night. Jim was one of them. Looks like his boss nominated him. My father-in-law looked at me strangely when I looked through the list of names and found Jim's name. Ryan, this doesn't sound like you, he said. What do you have against him? I just shrugged. Somehow he knew. He's the bastard who almost... He didn't even finish his sentence. We'll take care of him. He went away and talked to some of the lodge brothers who were on the membership committee. It's not hard to guess that Jim didn't even come close to becoming a member. The next day he called me, almost crying on the phone. Why can't you just forget it? He whined. You're trying to ruin my whole life because I slept with your wife? God, get over it. It's her fault too. You're trying to ruin the rest of my life, but she's coming home to be with you and her baby. This is really unfair. I noticed that by this time, Jim was speaking slowly, but much more clearly. Jim's difficulties continued because his boss wanted to know why he wasn't even considered for the lodge. Without going into detail about who it was, several members of the membership committee told him what Jim had done. That was enough for Jim's boss. He told Jim that he really didn't want to mix business with personal relationships and wouldn't fire Jim for anything he did outside of work hours. But he strongly disagreed with Jim's morals and didn't think he was a good fit for his company. He permanently transferred Jim to the night shift. At first, it didn't seem like a bad idea, but after thinking about it, I laughed. Jim worked in local sales. He received a very small base salary, which was really not enough to support himself, let alone support his family. Most of his income came from sales commissions. If Jim worked from 22 WOW to 06 CWOW, then all the businesses he needed to work with would be closed during the hours he worked, so he would have no sales. Jim quit after just 2 days. Of course, he blamed me. Starla came to me after Jim quit. She wanted to talk to me because since I was his best friend, she wanted to know if I knew why he suddenly quit. I reminded her that I didn't work with Jim, but I heard that he had some kind of disagreement with his boss. Looking at Starla, I felt terrible. She was trying to find out what was going on with her husband, and I looked at her like a schoolboy in love. Here she was, a faithful wife, and I was everything except a faithful husband. I invited her to lunch so we could talk about Jim. I talked to her too easily. Somehow, I told her about how Rhonda had recently cheated on me and I was trying to get over it. She gently stroked my hand and told me about how she once caught Jim and how she still couldn't get over it. She only stayed with him so that their children would have a father figure in their lives. Of course, being the great wife she is, she fully supported him during his recovery from his tongue injury. But if she caught him again, he would be dead to her. She also admitted that she and Jim hadn't been intimate since she caught him, and she really missed sex. Part of the problem was that Jim wasn't happy with the way she was acting. She told me she was a little old-fashioned. She viewed sex as lovemaking and needed an emotional connection with her partner, and she had difficulty finding that connection with Jim after his infidelity. When I looked at her, I could hardly restrain myself from telling her then and there. I was so close to taking out my iPhone and showing her the photos. Looking into Starla's eyes was an incredible experience. And she was as calm as I was before Jim and Rhonda turned me into a creep. She was shorter than Rhonda by several inches, but her breasts were several sizes larger and her ass was indescribable. Watching her walk almost made me cry. I thought again about what a fool Jim must have been. She was the sweetest, sexiest woman I've ever met. Returning to my cheating wife after work that evening was a futile effort. I had to admit that Rhonda was trying really hard to get things back to normal, but it was like trying to put the genie back in the bottle. She hurt me too much. I listened to the audio recording of them laughing and giggling several times. In her favor, she told him several times that she really loved me. She also never told him that there was anything wrong with sex with me. It's just that sometimes she wanted it rougher, and she got it from him. I think that in time I would forgive her the sexual side of her betrayal, but what I could never come to terms with was the lack of respect and the fact that I just couldn't trust her again. Plus, to be honest, I didn't love Rhonda anymore. A few nights after work, I saw Jim standing next to my Mustang. "I saw what you did, you bastard," he shouted. "I know that you told Starla about me and Rhonda. Just because you yourself are a weakling and could not keep your wife, you decided to destroy my family. You should get out of here before I actually hurt you," I replied sharply. He retreated. "Jim, I'm not going to hit you or do anything to you," I said. "I'm done with all this. I talked to your wife the other day because she wanted to know if I knew anything about the reasons why you quit your damn job. Now get lost." He started to walk away, but then turned around. He took some papers out of his jacket. "You're lying," he shouted. "2 days after I saw you talking to Starla, she kicked me out of the house and filed for divorce. If you didn't tell her, then who? You've been trying to destroy me ever since you caught me and Rhonda. Rhonda was as guilty as I was. Can't you see that?" What I saw, but he didn't, was Starla standing behind him. "You need to calm down," he shouted. "If you weren't such a coward, your wife wouldn't have started cheating on me. We don't love each other. We never have. We both just liked rough sex. If Starla didn't have a stick up her ass, I wouldn't have to look for someone else to satisfy my needs. You both deserve each other." He tore the papers and threw pieces at me. "Go to hell," he shouted. "Oh, shit." It looked like he wanted to say, "Oh, shit." He bit his tongue. He covered his mouth with his hands and just ran away. "So Jim cheated on me again, huh?" Starla asked quietly. I nodded. "He was the one who cheated with your wife, wasn't he?" she asked. I nodded again. "Ryan, why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "I saw that you were suffering from the first day we met. You wanted to tell me, didn't you?" I nodded. "Starla, your husband ruined my life," I said. "I was very happy. I loved Rhonda and our daughter like no one else in my life. I was tempted to show you the video, but what difference would it make if you heard them talk about you and me? You are a wonderful and wonderful person. You seem to have a chance at happiness. I didn't want to ruin your happiness because I was unhappy. Ryan, I had a chance at happiness." She smiled. "But I didn't have a chance to be stupid. I had a private investigator on Jim since the first time I caught him. I was going to file for divorce before he bit his tongue. I didn't want to do it when he was at the bottom." "Oh," I said. God, I thought, this woman is incredible. "Ryan, he's right about a lot of things," she said. "Most of our problems are that I don't really like to experiment with sex. If I get horny, I can do it all night. And I wasn't going to have sex with his friends or let them watch, so we're both better off without each other. After our divorce, I will probably move back to my hometown. I hope you and Rhonda can make things work." Watching her leave was, again, an almost religious experience. Just seeing her ass move under that tight dress made me hornier than I had been since I first caught Jim and Rhonda. When I got home, I almost thought about Almost. The next morning, Rhonda sat down at the kitchen table with me. "Ryan, I love you," she said. "It's not enough," I told her. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I know," she said. "You tried really hard, but I ruined everything. We're still friends, right?" "Yes," I said. "Over the past few weeks, I've probably forgiven you, but things will never be the same." "I know," she said. "I also know that Haley will be fine here with you. I'll be allowed to come visit her, right?" "I would have been angry if you hadn't come," I said. "I found a job," she said. "But it's in Ohio." "Doing what?" I asked. "The same thing I did here," she grinned. "This rich businesswoman, a widow with a small child, needs a nanny." "You will be wonderful," I said. I stopped. "Ryan, there won't be any men there," she smiled. "I'm so glad you asked or started asking. It tells me that you still care enough to be a little jealous, but you don't have to worry. I still hope that someday when I'm older, well, you know, what more could we say?" She has already signed the papers. We were already divorced. When she left the next day, she told me one more thing. "Ryan, I was stupid. I didn't understand the value of what I had. There are plenty of men who just want to sleep with you. Finding someone who truly loves you and is willing to do anything for you is rare. It's even rarer to find a true gentleman, someone who doesn't need to push people around or bully others. Don't let my stupidity make you change. Go back to the same kind guy I fell in love with. You'll be happier. And if you ever get lonely, all you have to do is pick up the phone." You could say we ended up having that phone call, and I'm glad we did. A year later, tired, I walked up the stairs after putting Haley to bed and watched her fall asleep. I heard laughter and saw a familiar translucent white dress, barely containing a pair of truly delicious breasts. I saw a finger beckoning me into our bedroom and followed it. In the darkness of our room, I tried to carefully remove her dress, but it was too tight on her bottom, and I wanted her too much. I tore the dress, causing her to burst out laughing, which immediately stopped. At that moment, I was incredibly glad that the concept of forgiveness exists. I was happier than I've ever been in my life. Over the past 6 months, I had enjoyed the best sex of my life and was confident that she was all mine. "Ryan, honey, what are we going to do when the baby is born?" she asked. "With the boys in what was the guest room and Haley in her room, we either need to expand the house or someone is going to have to give up their home office for a while." I did not care. My wife was pregnant, our marriage was strong, and I was crazy about her. Despite all the problems we went through because of Rhonda and Jim's cheating, I knew something good would come out of it. I was happy and again became as kind as before. My wife loved me as such a kind person. I didn't need to put pressure on anyone or prove anything. Our sex life is better than any other couple we know. All that passion for rough sex is gone. She left with Jim. Now we are both romantics to the core. We just love being together, but we've found other ways to spice things up. We check into hotels or do it in my office, but that's all we need. The phone rang and my wife answered. "Thank you," she said. "We're not doing anything unusual," she added. "Yes, we're in bed. He makes me do it every night. You know how strict he can be." Then she handed the phone to me. "Ryan, honey, it's Rhonda. Don't talk too long, honey. I want you to do that to me again." Now Rhonda and I are truly friends, and Starla has come to terms with that. She knows that I love her too much to ever cheat on her. We're just not those people. She also knows that Rhonda will never be more than a friend to me. The pain of what she did is too deep for us to ever be together again. But we all get along for Haley's sake. Things didn't work out for Starla and I right away. It took time, and we faced several obstacles on the path to true love. Jim never divorced her. That evening, when he ran out of the parking lot after his tantrum, he disappeared and did not return until several weeks ago. When he found out that I married Starla, he left again, and we never saw him again. Starla just laughed when we saw him. When he stuttered and hissed, he still didn't speak quite right. She interrupted him. You said that we deserve each other, didn't you? The hardest part was dating Starla. We both felt attracted to each other from the first moment we met. So, it was natural that we were attracted to each other. We also needed each other. I needed someone to look after my daughter. Starla needed a husband and a father for her sons. We both wanted to wait until after marriage to have sex, especially since it was sex that destroyed our previous marriages. It was even harder because shortly after Rhonda left, Starla moved in with me. We both knew we belonged and wanted to be together, but the first step was taken for practical reasons. Without Jim's income, Starla couldn't afford to stay in their home. So we sold it and put the money toward college for all 3 kids. Like I said, dating Starla was torture. She's too sexy to... Well, you know what I mean? It was terrible. We'd go on dates, then come home together and change into something more comfortable. Starla would innocently, or maybe not so innocently, start rubbing herself against me while we were watching TV. From the very beginning, we felt comfortable with each other, and we also wanted each other. Starla doesn't have a body type that would allow her to walk around the house in skimpy outfits. She's too tempting. I found out later that she planned it. By the time her divorce from Jim was finalized in court, I was ready to burst, and so was she. We never made it home. There is still a stain on the leather back seat of my Mustang that we laugh about every time we see it. Our sex life may not be wild or kinky, but it is passionate and fulfilling. There are hardly days when we don't make love. It is also filled with love and true attraction for each other. Besides being the sexiest woman God ever created, Starla is my best friend. We are very happy. I adopted her sons, she adopted Haley, and now we are all one big happy family with 3 sets of grandparents. You should see us at Christmas. It's brilliant. It looks like the good guy really won this time. End. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.